It is time for your Monday Night Raw review with a co-host that hasn't been on the show in a while, and Michael Gross returns to discuss Monday Night Raw, drop his wrestling knowledge on us as he does so often that you guys love, and we are going to get that show started right now.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my idol. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast Monday Night Raw review. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here tonight. And let me start off first with giving a shout out to our latest patron over there, of course, on patreon.com. And that is Joel Postel. Hope I pronounced that right. So Joel is the latest member to our Patreon family, enjoying ad-free and, of course, lots of other benefits like the priority placement in our mailbag show that is, of course, recorded tomorrow night. You still have time to get your mailbag questions in. It's a bit light this week, and I said that the last time, and you guys absolutely destroyed me with emails and phone calls. So I expect a little bit lighter this week, though, just because it is Thanksgiving week and people are traveling, and my podcast is not exactly most people's priorities, although it should be. I mean, you should prioritize this show over seeing your friends and family. I mean, like, the hell with Thanksgiving dinner, the hell with seeing your friends and family. Just worry about this show, because this is all that matters in your life. If only I was actually that conceited. But no, I really do wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving with their friends and family. Hopefully it is a little bit better than it was last year. Obviously with COVID and all the uncertainty and fear and all that kind of stuff that was going on, and does still linger today. So I hope that everyone does enjoy yourselves, enjoy the food, enjoy the football. We're going to be here with you. If you're sitting on the couch or sitting in the chair after consuming an enormous amount of food and you're about to pass out, well, hopefully we can help you maybe go to sleep if that's your goal, because a lot of you apparently sleep to us, which I guess is a compliment. I'm not sure how to take that. Or if you want to just be engaged and take your mind off things and hear us talk about wrestling. Both of those goals can be achieved by listening to the WWE Podcast. But my mailbag show tomorrow night, if you want to get involved, you can email us at realwwepodcast@gmail.com. Or you can call us, leave a voicemail at 518-952-0247, and you get 3 minutes to lay it on me. Questions, comments, rants are all welcome there. So, all right. Well, that is pretty much it for the intro. You guys know how to go ad-free on Patreon or on Apple Podcasts. Click that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts. There's a ad-free button. It gives you 7 free days, and then it's $2.99 a month. Or on Patreon, it's even cheaper at $1 a month. And then, of course, there's tiers above that. But the schedule for the rest of the week, guys, is as normal, although on Friday, or rather on tomorrow is Wednesday. Tomorrow is going to be mailbag, and then we're going to have an AEW Dynamite review show. We're going to have a SmackDown review show. And on Sunday, I'll be joined by a brand new co-host, and it's one of our patrons. So looking forward to that. And I think you guys will recognize the voice, but it is a brand new co-host to the show, and he has earned that right as being in our higher tier on Patreon. You get to come on the show and co-host with me once a month. That's one of the benefits of a higher tier membership. So consider that if you would like, and that's enough of my promotions. Let's get to myself and Michael Gross discussing everything WWE right now, and specifically targeting Monday Night Raw. Everybody, thanks so much. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you next time. Guys, it's been too long. It's been too damn long since we've had Michael Gross on the show, and that's why I'm really excited to say he is back tonight, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Survivor Series. We've already done a whole review show on that, but I can't not talk about it as we've got him with us, and also covering Monday Night Raw and the current product in general. So, Michael Gross, the gardener, how you doing, brother? It's great to have you here.
I'm all right, enjoying life down here in Louisville, and I've got a lot of thoughts and opinions on what's going on in wrestling right now. I've missed all the listeners. I missed the feedback and the Twitter engagements and such, but to the huge Twitter family that we have and the threads and all the people that are part of the family with WWE podcast, let alone the fans. Thank you guys. Miss you. I really miss you.
No, I hear you. And this is a therapy session for you, for me, for everybody listening. It's an escape from our normal lives. It is time, regardless of what is going on in your life, to talk about things that don't matter, but matter to us as wrestling fans. And I'm going to let you lead the conversation right now, Mr. Gardner, because before we hit record here, you let me know you had some interesting things you wanted to bring up. So the floor is yours.
Okay, well, first of all, considering that this product is kind of muddled right now and very muddy in the water, I expected full force on the running off the porch episode, which is what I'd like to call the episode after pay-per-view, when you have the going home episode at the last show before pay-per-view. I think running out the front door or running off the porch is a really good idea for the initial episode afterwards, setting up the next system or series of bouts for the next pay-per-view. With that being said, whatever term you like, I'm kind of curious to hear from our listeners and our fans out there what they think a good term is for the first show that is the reset. So, I figured, with as goofy as things are, and with Vince so far out of his rocker, that the egg was stolen by Repo Man. I really figured, and maybe Mike Rotundo, even though they released Bray Wyatt, his son, was going to make a showing as IRS, like, you didn't pay your taxes. And so he sends Repo Man to go repossess the egg.
That would have been better than what they gave us. I would have taken it. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people don't know this who haven't been listening to or watching wrestling for over 20 years like I have. But they ran an angle with a brilliant manager, James Vandenberg, also known as Father James Mitchell. He worked in both WCW, ECW, and Impact. And he did a really terrible angle where he tried to cut a promo and make it serious, where he was managing, I believe it was Mortis, God rest his soul, which was Chris Kanyon, where he said that Mortis was feuding with Glacier over this spirited skull that was worth $300,000 that they got in the underground Thai fighting pits of Malaysia. I can't even say it straight-faced. And I'll never forget that day, because I'm watching the promo. My dad was next to me on his computer, and he goes, "Oh, we should get a whole bunch of them then. We'd be millionaires." Flash forward, we have a whole show based around an egg that is nowhere near worth what they say. That isn't real. It's a movie prop. And we had a whole television program, a whole episode that was nothing more than a version of a scramble for the 24/7 title, which made the 24/7 title actually have a featured bout. It's a mouthful.
Yeah, now, I'm not trying to cut you off, but I do want to comment on that, because that was probably the worst part of Raw. Now, I don't want to set the tone off the bat that we're going to sit here for however long we're here and just complain about the product. There's a lot to complain about. There's a lot not to like. But we are going to find some bright spots, I promise you. But starting off with this, it has to be started off with because it's so absurd. This whole premise that there's this egg, I actually thought it was going to lead to somehow The Rock took it. He's coming back, because they hinted at The Rock so heavily in the pay-per-view. It didn't say explicitly he was there, so they didn't do false advertising, but it was as close as you can get. Where if I was in Brooklyn, I would have been really pissed off that they did not deliver The Rock to me with everything they were doing every 10 minutes. And so I was hoping, as silly as it was, if it led to The Rock coming back, I would have been like, fine, it was a means to an end. Fine, let's do it. But the fact that it was just Austin Theory who stole it, Vince rewarded him for stealing his quote-unquote $100 million egg, and then there was no payoff to it. Vince on camera doesn't look good anymore. And then the worst part about it was the 24/7 title, single file line, just team that the squad that just circles around in the same spots and everybody's tearing up the same room for this egg. And I'm like, guys, there's like 100 rooms in this place and everybody's just flipping over tables and destroying a singular room. It was just absolutely absurd.
It was just so strange. I mean, like, I don't know what the old man's thinking. And like you said, he doesn't look good. Look, when I was young, I worked at a funeral home when I was a teenager. Now, all I did was set it up for whatever basically calling hours they were going to have. And then afterwards we'd tear it down and that was it, you know. But I was a kid and I made money. My at the time best friend's grandfather owned the place. So, hey, you know, cash in hand, whatever. Mm-hmm. I remember at one point seeing someone that was on my paper route as basically a person that we were setting up for. And the makeup and everything else, it reminded me of the way Vince looked with the puffy eyes. The makeup was way too much. He is not healthy. The man is not healthy. I don't care what he thinks he's made of. I don't know if it's early onset dementia, but you can tell by the makeup alone that man is not healthy now. So that adds to a lot of what is going on here and the releases and the mentality and thinking you can't get stuff out of certain people. But I want to jump into one thing, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Let's go straight to the best match of the night, which was the main event. So, first of all, did you notice when Big E was cutting his promo backstage that he was kind of talking like Keith Lee?
I knew there was something different, and I couldn't put my finger on it, but that is a really smart observation, and I was thinking to myself, but there is something going on here with Big E. He sounds different. He's not being hokey and crazy and wacky and gyrating. What's he doing here? And I just never gave it more than a couple of seconds of thought. That's a good observation. Really smart.
Yeah, he looked more serious, which was cool. But he definitely was sounding like Keith Lee in his delivery. And I thought, okay, this could be paying tribute to someone who was released that maybe you were close with, or the fact that they picked up Keith only because they'd soured on Big E for a while, and then they came back to Big E and they said, well, you know, we kind of like that weird promo style, so why don't you use it? Don't know. We'll see if it continues. But it wasn't until the end when he started repeating himself and got the big eyes again that we started seeing the old Big E. And the other thing I was going to say, did you notice how many people were wearing yellow and black?
That was a prominent color, but what's the connection?
I don't know. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Now, I know it was the anniversary of Eddie's passing, but I don't remember Eddie wearing a lot of, I mean, he always had like the weird tribal kind of stuff on the sides of his tights. And he used to wear the Azteca stuff in WCW and ECW, but those were more like white and red. So I don't know. And that's one thing, like, if anybody out there can do their research who's listening and tell us why you think there was so much yellow and black featured on everybody's outfits, I'd really like to know. Now, the only other thing I can think is because they're going to more of a beyond PG product, I don't know what it is, that they want the colors to pop. Kind of like what they did with NXT 2.0. Or I thought it might have been an homage to the original NXT, like kind of like we're sorry. So we're all going to wear yellow and black.
That is my first thought when I'm thinking yellow and black. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, color combination wise, is the old NXT. It could have been. It could have been an homage. But I'm wondering why now? What's the purpose of this? Is it just to everybody getting together as kind of an under the radar type of tribute to the previous NXT? I mean, if that's the case, maybe.
You know, it's just a thought, but you know, it didn't come to my mind until I was like talking to you, thinking about it. It's like, okay, well, those are the NXT colors. I just can't think, you know, unless the next city they go to is Pittsburgh, So it's like an eluding
Steelers.
thing. Yeah, but I don't think it is. I don't know. I didn't memorize the schedule. But I'm just thinking that for some reason there was a lot of yellow and black. And it was just, I don't know, it was just too much for me. But yeah, I definitely noticed that Big E was talking like Keith Lee before his match. Now, getting into that match, if we can cover that real quick, I'd really like to.
Go ahead.
Okay, first of all, that was one of the most convoluted endings I've ever seen. And obviously, Theory looked amazing. Okay, and that's one thing I'm going to say. I think he even had some yellow and black on him. Austin Theory looked amazing. It sucks that he lost to the stomach cutter. Did you notice all the Sami Zayn oh chants over and over again?
Yes.
Is the man secretly over?
I think that if given a chance, he could be a huge star. I just don't know what the reason is for him being held back. And then every time he's in a match, he seemingly loses it. He can't get a big victory. But I think Sami, among especially a Brooklyn audience, or if he goes to one of the big markets, I think that there is a much more organic support for Sami Zayn. If you go to like a typical B town with, as WWE would say, like Knoxville or something like that, probably not. But in these big markets, I think they respect Sami Zayn a lot more than most.
I was going to say the only thing that stuck out to, first of all, I thought Theory's work was great, and actually, he had really good chemistry with Big E. This was a really good match. I mean, it wasn't pay-per-view worthy, but it was definitely main event for a Monday Night Raw. Of course, you and I have discussed the fact that you shouldn't be defending the title on a Raw unless you have something really big to pop the ratings. You're going against something major with football, whatever else. Point is, though, Theory looked really, really good. He looked jacked. The only thing that was weird is, did you notice he had chest acne?
I didn't look that close. No.
It's just something I noticed a long time ago, which is usually a sign of steroids, but they have the wellness policy. So maybe he just got chopped really hard in other matches and he just had some redness that kind of was retained. But if anybody's listening and if you notice the same thing, just kind of interesting because he looks like he's put on about 15 pounds all in the upper body. Even though I hate the fact that he's a combination of Tyler Breeze and The Miz, just let him be Austin Theory. You develop his own character. This whole selfie thing's got to go. But no, the match was great. The spots were not over the top. It's funny, though, because I remember when Theory was talking backstage, he was like, I know I'm new to Raw. I'm like, didn't you get us through the pandemic? Like, come on, man.
Yeah, it was Zelena Vega and Andrade. Yep.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I really liked the match. What was your thoughts?
That was easily the best wrestling match of the night. And they've really, over the last couple of weeks, decided to say, hey, let's push Austin Theory. I mean, he seemingly has come out of nowhere like an RKO to just pop into our screens. He made a huge bang, a lot of noise at Survivor Series, going way deeper into the match than most people thought he would be. At one point thinking maybe he could actually win the whole thing. And then he gets a WWE Championship match the very next night, putting him into a storyline with Vince McMahon on camera. I mean, that you talk about from basically obscurity into prominence. Now let's see how long this lasts, because Vince McMahon is extremely fickle and he has a shiny new toy every other week. I mean, I remember when Humberto Carrillo was reportedly his new shiny toy, and Humberto Carrillo was getting championship matches, and then he just kind of went away. He's still on TV, of course, in Los Lotharios, but I have my concerns that if you're an Austin Theory fan, this is going to be a long-term push because of how fickle Vince McMahon is.
I'm just wondering how long he's going to be Austin Theory until he's just Theory.
Yeah, when he loses his name, yeah.
Well, the thing is, because Steve Austin will make an appearance. Well, we can't have two Austins. They'll get confused. Yes, because you could really confuse those two.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So that was like my across the board like weirdness. The fact that he was wrestling, He was doing well. He got lost in two different factions, got bumped back down to NXT, changed his look like 2 or 3 times, not majorly, but basically trunks and some other stuff. And then comes back, they allow him to speak, because I don't remember him ever speaking before.
No.
And, then working an angle with Vince McMahon, supposedly stealing a $100 million egg, and then returning it, but everything's cool because that's something I would do. And then the payoff was a loss to Big E, but it wasn't a sloppy loss. Big E, of course, he's going to win. The chaos at ringside, it was a little much to me. One person at ringside causing a loss is one thing, but why would Austin stop to watch 2 people get in a fight?
Right.
So the psychology behind that was really blown. But yeah, it was the best match. It was definitely the best match of the night.
Definitely. I don't think there's any question about that. And really, this kind of a generally ho-hum Raw is to be expected. As we were speaking off the air, that this is the time of year when it starts to kind of decline. There's usually the TLC pay-per-view in December. That's not happening this year. It's just the time of year where you just get through December to start the new year, because the second January hits, the second that January 1st hits, obviously there's a pay-per-view that day, but more importantly to me and to most wrestling fans, it's on the road to WrestleMania. I know that it's not official until the Royal Rumble, but guys, we're only like 5 weeks away from the start of WrestleMania season. So if we can get through the next 5 weeks, we'll see what they really have in store for us.
Well, my thought process right now is, because they've done away with TLC and they're ripping off New Japan's New Year's Dash with First Day, that they're going to give a lot of people time off. So I anticipate a lot more ho-hum Raws like this, and I anticipate just pointless matches, weird stuff, and I think a lot of people are going to get time off, so you're not going to see your champions. I think they're going to try to go towards this rewarding the wrestlers kind of thing, or at least try to have that outlook, or that we're good to our people, we give them all December off, and maybe a lot of review shows, which that's really going to hurt the ratings. But with that being said, I mean, if it gives the boys a month off, I know Randy could use it. He's looking old.
But he's taking a lot fewer bumps, and I guess maybe we'll move into that if you're cool with it. Is Randy Orton and Riddle and that whole silliness that I think most people enjoy. But you're right, Orton is looking old. But again, nobody can escape the clutches of Father Time. I think that Father Time, no matter what Vince McMahon says, does, or believes, and maybe it's the tag team match that he defeated God in 2007 that is coming back to haunt him, and God is getting his revenge now. We'll see. But I think that Randy Orton he's aging, and that's to be expected, but he's still in incredible shape. I mean, he's able to take a lot fewer bumps being in a tag team with Riddle, because Riddle's taking most of the bumps for him. Ergo, lengthening his career by taking the mileage off his body.
Yeah, no, I get that. Like I've said, every show we've had for about 6 months, give Randy a break, though. He can't hold up the world on his shoulders anymore. Even Atlas shrugged, and maybe this is their way of giving him a break. It's weird how they put the mustache goatee on him. I hated the whole thing. Like, why are we revisiting the Mizdow angle with them? Matt Riddle can legitimately tap out 75 to 80% of that roster. And instead they just keep hyper extending the whole Rob Van Dam, I used to smoke weed angle. And this whole, this was a difficult match for me to watch. The way he acted, everything else, the fake mustache, the fake goatee, and then Randy putting it back on him. Something was lost. A little 2% of my respect for Randy was lost. Okay. And I love Randy Orton. Now this match, it wasn't botchy. It was just kind of ho-hum. I expected a lot more from the performers in this match. I don't like the whole Dolph in the tousled pants thing. That just looked really weird to me. I don't know how long he's been doing that. I guess I just really never noticed it, but I'm like, how many different pairs of tights is this guy going to wear in like a 5-year span? And then they talked about, let's see, I got my notes here. Yeah, what in the beginning, what was like Dolph just like out wrestling Matt Riddle? But then I realized that Dolph was a collegiate wrestler, so I can deal with that considering Matt Riddle was a UFC fighter. But it just seemed bad chemistry. That's what this match was. Bad chemistry. And then bad commentary and the Jim Carrey style commentary on the match. So that's kind of what I had notes on that one. But just changing Matt Riddle's look again, and then the whole revisiting the Miz Dow thing. Why? Your thoughts?
Well, it goes back to my original just theory, no pun intended. But I think that it's when Vince sees comedy in anyone, you look out. If I was around Vince McMahon, I would never make him laugh ever, because he will take that and make it your identity as a character. And Riddle, I think that honestly, Riddle and Orton have good chemistry. Now the sophomore shenanigans that they do on a weekly basis, it's funny to some people, it's not to others. I'm kind of back and forth on it depending on what they're doing. This week wasn't my favorite with him dressing up as Randy, because you take somebody, like you said, like Riddle, who has real credentials, a guy that, I mean, honestly, he has a cardio tank that is endless. This guy is, I think, a future world champion. And right now he's with Randy Orton. And if he's going to do comedy, at least it's with somebody that is a legend in the business, where Riddle is really making himself a career right now. Even if you and I don't like that type of comedy, the upside is once they decide to turn his character, and at some point I think they will, because he's a future main eventer, he's already had that foundation of working with Randy Orton for X amount of months as tag team champions. So he'll have that to lean back on. And I think you're right, though. This match coming back to Raw with Dolph Ziggler, it was surprising that it wasn't a great match from a chemistry standpoint, because Dolph Ziggler is, I mean, you know what you're going to get with him. He is so smooth in the ring generally, and he can work with anybody, that it's kind of surprising that you have these two go at it. And it was like, it was okay. It's just, it is weird.
Yeah. And I don't know. I really just had higher expectations. What gets me though is like this Randy and Matt Riddle thing. I feel like you said, it's a break for Randy to elongate his career, and I'm going to give him so many props because, like I said, I'm a fan, but I'm not like uber fan. All right. But I'm a huge fan. And the fact that he has been doing this as long as he has, and unless it's an injury, something torn, whatever else, he doesn't take breaks. And like I said, he can't hold up the world on his back. So maybe this is their way of saying, okay, we'll elongate it. And this is our way of putting a little bit of a spotlight on Matt Riddle. And now they're really trying to sprinkle the believability dust on it that no one's going to turn on anybody. That's what's really happening with this. And maybe Randy does have an injury, a minor one or something like that. So they have to extend this a little bit longer. But the fact is, I mean, it's coming to a point where I'm starting to say, okay, maybe these guys will be together another year. Maybe. And then when we have the turn, which we all know there's going to be one at some point, unless something else happens and say there's a legitimate injury and one goes out, it just looks like we're buying into this a lot more. I'm buying into this a lot more, that they actually work as a dysfunctional family tag team. So they're doing something long-term with it, obviously. And I'm hoping there's a payoff. I'm hoping that there's a reason behind everything.
Well, yeah, there has to be. Like, teams in general, 99% of the time are not, and factions are not built to stay. They're built to break up, to create single stars. Unless your name is part of the New Day, which is really unfortunate they haven't broken them up. I think that generally groups and teams are made to break up. So yeah, I think the most obvious answer here is that this leads into a WrestleMania match with these two. Maybe Riddle's the one that turns heel. Everybody thinks Orton's going to hit an RKO out of nowhere. Oh, Randy's heel again. But maybe they try to go the other way. So that, I guess that's my final question to you, and then we'll move on, is do you think that when this turn happens, is it Riddle that actually turns on Orton, or do you think it's Orton that turns on Riddle?
I mean, it's been predestined in history that Orton can't keep a polarity, and he's a natural heel. Now, for him to play the babyface to a heel Matt Riddle would be an interesting storyline because it's something we haven't seen, and it's something. Honestly, I think that'd be the best way to go. You couldn't book it any better. But then again, you have to look at how do you book it. Does Matt Riddle say that he's played our intelligence the whole time? That's the best way to go. You guys thought I was a bro and I was always high. And then he's got to cut the most scathing promo. Those writers are going to have to write him the best promo where he just takes it serious. And the thing is, I've watched his work in PWG and a lot of other indies. And while he was always kind of laid back like that, it wasn't like this. I mean, this is like Rob Van Dam tuned up to 10. And so a lot of people who aren't familiar with him won't know what he can do when he cuts a promo, when he's just himself. But he's still always been that kind of laid-back guy. So I need to see something really special out of him, something really magical and moving and mind-blowing as far as a promo goes when he turns. I have to buy it. I can't just be like, oh, he got a bad strain of Chiba, you know. I got to see something, you know, to make me sink my teeth into it, you know, put a little sizzle on the steak, and then we might actually have a better program than the Randy turn. I think it could really, really work as long as the writers don't screw it up and just keep going with the stoner angle. It could really work, and honestly, it could work another year. It really could. Oh,
they could. They could stretch this if they want, and I think that Riddle, if I was in charge of this, I would have Riddle turn because, like you said, get this, squeeze all the juice out of this that they can, sell all the merchandise that they can. If they're making bank on the merchandise, yeah, stick with it for a little while. I mean, this is a for-profit organization. I get it. And so if I was Riddle, or if I was creative, yeah, I'd have Riddle turn and then say that, you know, for the longest time, Randy, you've just taken me as a, you know, I've been in your shadow. You haven't been taking me seriously. I've been disrespected at every turn. You RKO'd me at one point, and I forgave you for that. Like, there's so much he could do to just flip to say, you know, this is who I really am. You know, I was using you. There's a way to do it. And we've seen Randy Orton's heel so many times, and it is so predictable that a heel turn from Riddle, I think, would be more fun, even though I do understand Orton is a better heel, and I get that, and Orton prefers to be heel. But all right, let's move on. And before I do that, I'm getting a little feedback from your phone. I don't know if the volume is too high up on your end. That's much better. So Becky Lynch, I want to talk about her promo, because her in-ring promo, I think, was... I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was A+. And nobody came out to interrupt her, which is always interesting when somebody cuts a promo and no one comes out to interrupt. But I'm fine with that. It doesn't always have to happen. She came out and to you know, a lot of cheers. The Brooklyn crowd really loved her. And I think that, you know, their heel turn of Becky Lynch has been really just lukewarm. I don't understand exactly where they're going, because 1 minute she's a heel, 1 minute she's a baby face, but the fans still cheer her. Then Becky will say kind of a backhanded compliment to the crowd. They'll boo her, but then the next event they're back to cheering her. It's so weird of what they've done with Becky Lynch. I can't identify what she is, because she's just kind of like an in-between, and I do not like in-between. And so anyway, her promo was kind of pointing at the fans about some real stuff that we complain about, like how, you guys like new. Oh, you always love new, don't you? You love new. And she ran down Liv Morgan. She ran down Charlotte Flair, of course, after her victory over her at Survivor Series. She said she had a death grip on the Raw Women's Championship. And so I honestly, I enjoyed this promo. I felt like there was a lot of real stuff that she said that you normally don't hear from wrestlers. And so I think this was good. Liv Morgan is obviously next up in the batter's box to face Lynch, of which nobody believes that she'll win. And even Becky said that, which was kind of funny. But what did you think about this promo? Did you enjoy it, or maybe you're on the opposite end?
No, actually, this is what I have for my notes. So first of all, Becky comes out, she starts talking, and either Graves or Saxton said, she shot on Charlotte Flair. Like trying to use that inside lingo, and then Becky's new promo is what I have. 50-50. If it was not scripted, it could have been a hell of a lot better. And then I wrote the running down of Liv Morgan gains just positive momentum for Liv Morgan. The thing is, Liv Morgan is nowhere near the in-ring talent that Becky Lynch is. We all know it. So she doesn't have a prayer to win that title, at least not now. But then again, with Vince the way he is, he might go back to leggy, beautiful women. And then why have Bianca out on the next segment, but not interrupt on her own behalf? That made no sense to me. So she's going to be up to wrestle next, which, so in your mind as a fan, you would think that she's on cue and she's ready to wrestle, and she hears her own name being degraded and run down, and she doesn't come out to say anything. Instead, she comes out next twirling her hair.
Yeah.
It made no sense to me. So, I think it's kind of like when Becky said, I'm the man, and it just kind of changed everything, and they gave her a little creative rights. She had all the momentum. She had momentum. She did say what she wanted to say, and she did tell the truth. But the fact is, I could see 100% it was scripted for her, and she had to save lines. That's what I felt about that promo. As far as poor Liv Morgan goes, she's like 2 years away from wearing gold. I could be wrong, but her in-ring, I mean, I can rattle off 6 or 7 wrestlers who are better than her. And that's, I mean, Dana Brooke is actually a better in-ring performer who constantly looks more and more physically altered. I mean, Natalia is a better wrestler. I mean, there's so many people who are better wrestlers. You might have the momentum, but there's a certain effect. With the men, they can try to push it through the moon and try to cover it up and use Kevin Dunn's magic in the back truck to try to, edit everything else. With the women, they don't care as much. And Liv Morgan could be part of the next round of releases if things don't go her way and she doesn't get over the right way. So I don't really see her in the long run right now. I don't really see her as a main event player right now. I see her as someone who's getting a mini push to kind of test the waters and see if she can sink or swim.
That's exactly the analogy I used in one of my shows, I think last week, and on Survivor Series review show. Is like Liv Morgan right now, what they're doing is right now, as you just said, they are not going to make her champion, nor do I think she's even ready to be champion, even though many of us believe, she's been underutilized, forgotten, she hasn't gotten an opportunity, on and on and on, all the things you hear about Liv. But I think if WWE is smart, and it seems like right now they seem to be a little bit with Liv, is kind of testing things where the fans are with Liv. Do they believe, and will they stick with her when she gets screwed out of the championship? Do they react in a way that starts like some kind of movement, like with Daniel Bryan, where the fans force Vince's hand to a place where they have to continue to push Liv? And so to me, you're right. This is an experiment. This is an experiment to see if the fans truly get behind Liv and this movement for Liv is real, or if it's just kind of a flash in the pan. Yeah, we thought we wanted Liv in this spot, but we don't really. And the fans are really going to be the ones who drives this. And I believe that WWE is relying on the fans to see where they want her to be. So the fans really have all the power in this one, I believe.
It comes down to momentum. It really does come down to momentum. I mean, if people keep believing in Liv and they keep following her and everything else. It's going to be great. But I tell you what, she goes out there, if they main event something, or, if it's the females main event, whatever you want to call it, and the match is botchy, way too scripted, whatever, it's over. It's over. That she has one shot. I am telling you, one shot. And then it's back to 24/7 chasing, and then maybe the next round of releases.
Yeah, it's very possible. Nobody's safe unless you're in that top tier of elites that are like Roman and Seth and maybe even Drew McIntyre. Unless you're in that category, I really would not feel safe. I would not have any job security in that place right now. So, okay, let's continue down the line here. Bianca Belair defeats Tamina via pinfall. She hit the KOD. And then after the match, Doudrop attacked Belair and hit her with the seated crossbody and walked off arm in arm with Tamina and Natalya. So Bianca Belair in a much different program than normal with Doudrop, who has turned heel. It's amazing that she's actually kept her name Doudrop instead of, maybe Piper Niven or something else. To me, Doudrop is an extremely kind of derogatory term, and they wouldn't say that because of the way they spell it, but we all know what a dewdrop looks like. And if someone was to tell me, it's nothing to do with her body type, nonsense. Of course it does. That's exactly why they named her the way they did, which again is super derogatory, and they'll deny it until the cows come home. But anyway, I actually do enjoy Bianca Belair in this program with Doudrop. Now, it's not the end-all, be-all, oh my God, it's the best thing ever, but it feels different for Bianca, and it's a different obstacle for her to overcome, and ultimately seeing her hit the KOD on a Doudrop is going to be a lot of fun, because I do think Bianca has the strength to do it, and I think the fans are going to pop like crazy when she finally does it at a pay-per-view, probably at day one on January 1st. But overall, look, I mean, this match it is what it is. Tamina never knocks her socks off. She's kind of in and out of relevancy, and Bianca Belair beating Tamina is no shock. But what do you think about not just this match, but Doudrop and Bianca Belair?
Well, first of all, it tells you Bianca's being taken down a peg. I had said it a while ago when I was on the show with you that I got tired of seeing her because I thought she was overexposed. They got on that Montez Ford, Bianca Belair train like a long time ago, and it was just overexposure. She was on every show. She was on 2 segments a day, and I was like, people are going to get sick of this. You want her one segment and a promo. That's it. Keep it short and sweet. Keep it to 12 minutes a night. Mm-hmm. And the problem is it wasn't that at all. And I think that's why Vince soured on it. That's why I soured on it. It's not that she's a bad performer, but like the whole thing with having your name sullied and then you're the next person to come out for a match, it's silly to me. Why don't you come out and interrupt? Why don't you say something and then stand your ground, and then somebody separates it so you know that she's still a top game performer, but now she's got to work this program with Doudrop. Doudrop, like you said, come on. We're not stupid. Just like I'm sure now that I mentioned it, you noticed Bianca's her intro graphic. Was I right about what it looks like?
Her intro graphic. Oh, does that have to do with her hair or? Yeah,
the lips of the hair.
Yep.
Was I right?
I mean, you could interpret it that way.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, I do think that there's some kind of weird Weasley, Vince Russo person saying terrible things backstage, and some writer having fun and somebody in the back truck having fun with infographics and stuff like that. But so with Bianca, obviously her speech was really, really written. We could tell it was scripted. But it also makes you look like, is she a face or is she a heel? She's not quite 50-50, but the way she cuts a promo, it's supposed to be face, but there are some definite heel moments in it. Like, I'm the best, I'm this, I'm that. Repeating always that you're the best is not always the baby face thing to do. But just being knocked down to this program is such a blow to the ego after what she's done in the last 6 months to a year. It was supposed to be Bianca, and it looks like all right, let's cool the jets. And I think part of this is the fact that they realized that they overexposed her. So now let's take it down. We'll work it with Dewdrop, and then we'll work it now with Natalia because we've already beaten Tamina a couple times, and try to gain that momentum back and get it more organic than it was before. Because before it was organic, but it just seemed forced organic. So what I'd like to see is, go through the trifecta of the women, and then maybe have another feud with another lower tier woman before you get back into that challenging, because the whole Charlotte, Becky, if it was really real thing in the back was hot. And I mean, if it was real, that's what's hot. And that's what people are talking about. And the fact that Zelina Vega is finally wrestling and people can see what she can do. And it's not like winning the Queen of the Ring is prestigious because it's never really happened before. But people are seeing how well she can actually really wrestle. That takes you down a peg. I mean, what's up with Becky, or not Becky, but Bailey? We haven't seen her in forever. I haven't.
Injured. Yep.
Yeah. So, when she comes back, she's going to be hot because if you're injured, you always get a babyface return. So there's so much prime time talent at the top that Bianca can't really squeeze in. And she was only there for a cup of coffee. So let's build it. Let's do a good underdog. Let's do a good, let's give her some backstory. I hope that's what they're doing. And if they do, then she's going to be hot as Hades and coming out there like fire. So.
And Bianca, you're right. They have taken her down, but I think that's the best thing you can do when you want to build them back up, because they can't consistently be at the top. It's very difficult for fans to continuously engage with you on a very high level where you're consistently in a title picture, consistently holding a championship. I mean, look what happened with Drew McIntyre being insanely overexposed to the point where fans were just about to turn on him before they brought him down out of the title picture. He was in and out of the title picture for like 18 months, and fans started to resent it. It became very repetitive. It was the same promos from Drew. He was in the same positions. It's like, okay, cool. We love you, Drew, but can you move on? And so I think with Bianca, maybe they're getting ahead of it right now and not allowing something like that to happen where the fans start to resent a character, even if they're beloved, in a top position all the time. So I think while she is quote unquote down a peg or two, this is really good for her to, as you said, cool her jets and to just take a breath, evaluate where you are, get out of the minds of fans in terms of always at the top. And when they're ready, presumably around Royal Rumble time, I would think she'll probably make some noise in the Royal Rumble again. Maybe she'll win it for the second year in a row. We'll see. But that's when I would start to build her back up. I mean, this being what it is right now for Bianca is fine with me because it is a setup, I think, for a much bigger push coming, come January. And switching gears, though, as you talked about Zelena in the Women's Tag Team Championship match, which, by the way, I mean, I think this is the first time the Women's Tag Team Championship has been defended in like months, simply because they didn't have a division. So having Carmella and Zelena defeat Nikki and Rhea, the reason the championship match happened is simply by Carmella and Zelena existing as a tag team, they earned a championship opportunity because there is nobody else in the division. There are no other tag teams in the women's division. So they just had to exist to get a championship match. And Carmella and Zelena ended up beating Nikki and Rhea for the women's tag team championship. So go ahead and talk about that.
Well, first of all, I did like the promo, but I hate the fake. You know this. I hate the
accent.
The fake king and queen accents. Like, just do away with it. It's so stupid. You're not royalty, okay? So people are finally getting to see what Zelena can do, which is amazing. I loved this match for Zelena only, and I loved it for Rhea going probably and hopefully singles only. First of all, is it me or is Rhea getting even bigger? I mean, she looks bigger than she was. Like, she's looking strong.
I think also being in the ring with Zelena and Nikki, who are naturally half her size, makes her look bigger. But yeah.
But no, she just looks bigger. Like, not taller, but just like stronger and stockier. I mean, I wouldn't mess with her. she looked like a destroyer in this match. As far as Rhea goes, she looks great. She was doing great work. Zelena was doing great work. Nikki actually wasn't doing bad work. Of course, Carmella is going to be your weak one, but that kick that she did to Nikki's head that wound up getting a pin, that was really nice. I kind of like the whole Carmella putting on the mask because she's the prettiest girl, and of course Graves has to put it over because everybody knows that they're a thing. But it's something we'd see in the 80s. But the fact that, the tag titles have changed, we put some gold on Zelena. She's already won Queen of the Ring, so how much momentum does she have? I also had in my notes that when we had Nikki and Zelena in the ring, we had the Battle of the 5 Foot Talls. And then I found this really interesting, and this is going to be some history that we can look back on. And if anyone wants to prove me wrong, which they probably can't, we're going to go with this. So Zelena uses the Code Red for a finisher. Now, do you know where the Code Red came from?
I think you told me this one time. Canadian Destroyer, isn't it like a...
It's kind of, it's different. It's like a reverse Canadian Destroyer. It came from a wrestler named Amazing Red. He never wrestled for the WWE, okay? But here's something very, very interesting about it, okay? Rey Mysterio wanted to use it once. So he asked Amazing Red if he could use it. Amazing Red said yes. In return, Rey Mysterio sent him a pair of his custom-made pants that Amazing Red really liked because they're about the same height, same build, okay? Now, usually, if you use a move from somewhere else, they rename it. Henceforth, the Scorpion Deathlock became the Sharpshooter. So it's really odd that they'll call it the Code Red, like with no problem. It's really, really strange to me that they kind of just lifted it for that one. And it was used back in early 2000s, but because it's such a cool move, any kind of indie cool move or what they considered minor league cool move, any guy did, they would give to the women to make it look weak for men to use in the indies. And it looks like Vince is going back to that mindset, but it was just so crazy that they still call it the Code Red.
I don't know the motivation behind that. I don't know why they decided to stick with that instead of repackaging and renaming the move. I don't have an answer. If you're looking for one, I don't know. But at least I do appreciate the origin of that. But I don't have an answer as to why they didn't rename this one. They like to always put their own spin and own name on things. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's one of those deals where it came into prominence towards the end of the Attitude Era, beginning of the Ruthless Aggression. So they were still kind of acknowledging other wrestling destinations and stuff like that. So I figure, and now that Amazing Red is basically retired and he's a teacher, maybe makes a one shot here and there, it's okay to mention it. I don't know, but it kind of blows my mind that they'll still call it the Code Red. And but it looked great. Okay, so let's get back to that. It looked great. The match it really wasn't that bad for what I expected. I expected a little bit more, I don't want to say slop, but it just didn't, I don't feel like these four women would have chemistry. Rhea looked so good in that ring. And the reversal of, what was it, the head scissors into the DDT.
Oh, the spike DDT, yeah.
Oh, that was amazing.
Mm.
Great spot. And like I said, even Carmella's kick to Nikki's head, I believe she could have knocked her out. It just looked right. Maybe they just caught the right camera angle. Of course, Carmella's building heat with her mask and everything else. And it's a god-awful, ugly mask. But that's the point because she's so beautiful. So I like what they're doing with it. They're having fun. Of course, it's not going to last because they're going to split them up. But the two people who win out of this is Zelena, obviously, because I think that they're starting to see that she is really talented. And I think they had to cool the jets on Rhea because they didn't know what to do with her. And I think that was just more the writers and not the Bianca effect. I honestly think it was more them trying to push Bianca over her that they figured out, oh, wow, we might have pushed the wrong one. One had major crowd following, but the other one's an incredible performer. They're both really good, but I think Rhea's a lot better. And so I think they're redefining their women's division. And I'm wondering myself if they have a new producer for the women's division. And I know that like Molly Holly had tried out backstage, but nobody had ever heard if she got hired or fired or whatever else. I know that Finley worked with it for a long time. And I'm just wondering if they have a new producer who's like saying, okay, let's go in a new direction. Let's actually build something. And they might be doing that. And I think that's kind of the spin that they're putting on this right now.
I hope so, because the women's tag team division, if you're not going to do anything with it and you have no teams there, why do you even have a championship? I mean, right now there are 2 teams in the women's tag team division. I challenge anybody to find another one on the main roster. I don't know. I mean, they've broken up everybody that it was there. Hit Row doesn't exist, or they're not a team. As far there was one woman on BFAB or whatever, but they broke up the Shotzi Blackheart team. They broke up. Obviously, the Iconics are gone. I mean, they've taken and dissolved every tag team that existed. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler are gone. You know, so I just have a problem with them having a championship of which there are no contenders to compete for. So let's move on, though. I agree, though, about Zelena. Huge fan of Zelena Vega. Yes. I've always been a big fan of Zelena Vega, and I think her best days are still ahead as women's champion. I really believe that. So, all right, let's get to, let's see, what do we talk about here? Let's talk about something else I did enjoy, although it wasn't really a match. It was Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. This clearly was a setup to their match, presumably at day one. They've got 4 other shows now to fill before day one, 4 other weeks to fill. And so I think this was a setup for that match, considering this match didn't take place and that Rollins just attacked Balor. And he was left laying and Rollins gave him a couple of stomps. Again, not a matchup, but do you like this pairing of Seth and Finn? It's nothing new. I mean, we've seen this in the past, but what did you think about this setup?
Well, it's different. I liked it. I think it can have a lot of legs. I think that they gave us the side dishes. Now we're waiting for the entree. And what's really awesome is that these 2 guys are 2 of the best performers they have. So a major blow off is going to be something really bigger. The only thing that sucks is that they kind of wrote Seth into the main event later on that night, which means if they're just going to leave this by the wayside and it's a one-time shot, then we all got screwed on something that could be really, really great. Now, here's my thing. How did Seth go from Jim Jones from Cult History to the Stork from Animal House in just a year? Didn't you notice that? I mean,
yeah.
His look, everything. His promos are over the top. They were really like, I get the fact that if he follows their script to a T and overacts the way they do, Jim Carrey style, that you hate his promos, but you can't disagree that Seth is just so amazing in the ring. And then you have Balor, who's Balor. He's just amazing. And we don't get a match. Instead, we get, a weird, goofy fight, which that's going to be a blow off because I see Seth being the next challenger for Big E and then Balor being the one to interrupt it. And then Kevin Owens getting into it and then maybe a fatal 4-way. Please, no. We don't know what to do, so we'll make it a fatal 4-way.
Just going to say that.
Okay. Of course, okay, so Balor came out in his Fonzie look with the leather, and then there was Holy S chants. And Seth was standing there in the middle of the ring looking like Aquaman. And then I didn't know if they were killing off Balor for being smaller or whatever, but he definitely got like pretty buried in that little fight there. And then one of the egg stomps looked pretty god awful, or head stomps, excuse me, looked god awful. There's one other thing that got me about this. you heard about the extracurricular afterwards, right?
Educate me.
Oh, you didn't hear about this? This is amazing. So,
a fan. There was some fan
Seth
jumped the barricade and
Seth.
attacked Rollins. I did hear. I didn't see.
Oh, yeah. So there was a little part of it you had to really catch. The editing was really fast. Now, I watched everything on Sling, okay? But basically, so Edge is walking up, kind of doing his heel thing, and a fan jumps over, and I guess they got in a little bit of a scuffle. Now, on the Sling version I watched, which is pretty much live, like you saw it, and then the commentary said something about it real quick, and then they stopped. And then they panned back to Rollins, and he's got a bloody lip. And then he walks away. And then I find out the news spreadsheets today that, yeah, it was just a crazy fan. And they brought like a lawsuit against him. Now that's good heat. That's real heat right there. That's good old NWA mid-'80s heat. That's the, Nikita Koloff trying to get out of the place after he beat Magnum TA half to death kind of heat, like you better leave out the back after midnight. We're going to leave the door open for you. There's going to be a car running. I mean, that's that kind of heat. I didn't think people actually had that kind of heat anymore. That is pretty awesome. Now, the character of Rollins, like I said, right now he needs to tune it up back to the Messiah, and not the Monday Night Word, just the Messiah. The dancing kind of the half boa, and then coming out later it looked like a bathrobe, bathrobe over clothes kind of thing, which I think was backhanded politics towards Ric Flair when Becky was saying stuff about, Charlotte, ask your dad this and that. Like it was kind of like a knockoff kind of thing. I think it could have been if there's real heat there. But, what I'm saying is this was interesting because I don't know where it's going to go. And if Seth Rollins is being injected into the main event right now, I have no idea what they're going to do with Finn Balor. They need to continue this. They need to have a good series of matches, a good big blow off. I would actually have Seth keep going crazy and like psycho attacking him over and over again, and then keep showing up for the main event. And then if Seth ends up winning the title, then Balor comes back and defeats him, and then you could actually use an event, an attraction match like a street fight, because it was always a fight before. That is the way I'd book that.
And you're never going to get a bad match with Finn and Seth. It's physically impossible with these two professionals who are elite wrestlers, performers in this in pro wrestling today. I would challenge that across really any promotion. Are they the best of the best of the best? I mean, that's all subjective, but in WWE land, they are in the elite category of performers. And so I'm not worried ever. No one should ever be worried about the quality of their matchups. And I don't think we are here. It's just about story here and babyface and heel, which are clearly defined right now. I like that. And you're right about the Fatal 4-Way when you were talking about it, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, well, they could be Seth versus Finn all the way up to day one and January 1st, or they could decide to just lump them all into a Fatal 4-Way and have Seth Rollins capture the WWE Championship there by pinning like Kevin Owens or somebody that's not named Big E to protect Big E. To get the belt off him, make Seth champion, but not hurting Big E in the process. That's very possible as well. And you're right about the fan attacking Seth in terms of heat. I do wonder, though, if is it true heat that motivated the man? Was it some kind of mental illness? Was it him being overserved? I mean, there are a multitude of potential factors as to why he attacked Seth. I don't know the answer to that, but if it's true heel heat and the guy just really hates Seth Rollins, that to me, that's the best answer I could have. I mean, I would be like, okay, if I was, the DA or whoever is taking up this case, I would be like, well, what's the motivator, right? Did he truly hate Seth Rollins? If the answer is yes, I'd be like, you're free to go. I'd be like, okay, that's good. That's a true pro wrestling fan right there. But of course I'm joking, but I do believe that Seth and Finn are destined to have a series of matches. Does it delineate itself from the WWE Championship picture, or is it its own program? That remains to be seen. I do fear that it's going to be a fatal four-way, like you said, though. Any final thoughts before we get to the next topic?
Well, the best way to push it forward and to elongate this feud is that you have a fatal four-way and it's Finn that gets pinned.
Yeah, and they're not shy about having Finn lose matches lately. So yes.
Yeah, and then we build it to every time they see each other, they just brawl. They fight until we actually have a main event that means something. If you have a street fight instead of just an Extreme Rules street fight, when everything's extreme that night or something like that, it would mean a lot more. And then we could have a blow off that we like. And then, you know what I'd like with a match like that? If they wrestled more in the ring and used a lot less furniture.
To me, yes, because these two don't need it, and that type of stuff when they have, not all the time, of course, but a lot of times when they have performers in the ring that aren't great from a technical perspective and wouldn't put on a quote-unquote 5-star match by today's standards, they'll bring in those extracurricular things like weapons and things because it's a crutch and another thing that you could do to cover the weaknesses of those two performers inside the ring. I mean, look what they did with Bobby Lashley and Goldberg at SummerSlam. They made it a no DQ match because that way Goldberg didn't have to be exposed, although we all know what his weaknesses are, but he didn't have to be exposed and completely embarrassed on TV when people saw like, oh, well, he has about, 3 moves in his arsenal, and he was allowed to just, use weapons and go through tables. Of course, that's a nice little deodorant for his inability to really have a true wrestling match. So, all right. Well, I want to move on, though. AJ Styles and Omos, pick your pronunciation, as I always say, because it's really impossible to decide. Omos or Omos, however you pronounce it, should just come on air and say it's Omos, right? And just stop all the debate. But AJ Styles and Omos defeat the Street Profits via disqualification after the Street Profits sprayed both opponents with a fire extinguisher. So I really don't have a ton here other than that AJ and Omos are still a team. And we've all been waiting for AJ to go off on his own, have one maybe last good run before he calls it a career. But it's been all about building Omos. It's been all about building him. He eliminated 8 people in the Battle Royal. He's yet to leave his feet, much less take a finisher or lose a match. They are clearly all in on him. But what do you make of, I guess, this quote unquote match that they had with the Street Profits that ended in a disqualification because of a fire extinguisher?
Well, first of all, how babyface is it for you to bring a weapon? And how babyface is it for you to use the weapon like premeditated? This would not stand up in court. So my thoughts about the whole thing is that this was throwaway. It's trying to protect both teams. But the only person protected is Omos, because AJ does the wrestling, Omos does the power. Profits, I mean, you get your standard Street Profit match stuff, but the fact is that you're trying to build this new Titan, this new release the Kraken kind of guy. I'm sorry, man. The second movie I ever saw was Clash of the Titans, the 80s, and all the Harry Hamlin you can handle. And so we know what the build is. So it's throwaway, but it's okay. Well, how do we keep them, protected? But it doesn't look good for their characters to bring out a weapon to begin with. And I wrote in my notes, I was like, what's in the bag? Is it Rowan's spider?
Oh God, Rowan's spider.
That would have been the best. And then you find out Wes is afraid of spiders or something like that.
He's got arachnophobia, yeah.
It would have just been awesome. So for the one thing I hated was, what was it? It's right here that I think it was Graves or Saxton, one of the two god awfuls, was like, look at the hops on Montez Ford. And I was like, did you ever see AJ Styles' catalog of wrestling? and you talk about his hops. It's like he has the same match every time. AJ has done a million matches, and he's made them different against a million different opponents, but they can't talk about that kind of things. It's just, I know what's fed into their ears. So really, they've got so much stock in him. And I don't understand why they have so much more stock in him than they did Braun Strowman. I mean, they gave Braun Strowman choo-choo train sounds. So, until Omos, I'm wondering what sounds he's going to get. It's really curious to me. The guy still doesn't have proper wrestling gear, which I'm wondering what it is going to initially translate into. And my other thought on that is, if you're hiding a guy's body that much, either you're wanting him to get jacked or you don't know what to put him in because his body is just so oddly misshapen. Which could be something like, look at Kurgan. His body was really misshapen, but he was huge. So it was slop. It was throwaway. It was a bathroom match. Basically, I just thought it was really weird that they made the Profits cheat right off the front. I mean, okay, you're going against the Titan, but if one of these guys is supposed to be like a future main eventer, like they build it, which I don't think is going to happen. I honestly think the Profits are on the downslide at this point. I think in Vince's eyes, this is a protection match, but I wouldn't be surprised if they drop a match or two in the next couple weeks.
The Street Profits have been out of the conversation for the tag titles for quite some time, just doing kind of hokey stuff. And I don't want to put anything past Montez Ford, who was clearly the star of that group. He's clearly the one that when this team breaks up is going to be that next star. And I think he is down the line, not anytime soon, but I think he is a future WWE champion. I really do believe Montez Ford is down the line. I don't think Angelo Dawkins is. I think Angelo Dawkins is a step or two below him. Just from a magnetic standpoint, promo ability, in-ring ability, likability, I think Montez Ford has a little bit more going for him than does his tag team partner. But this match, there's not much to say about this. This was just, like you said, kind of a bathroom break. And that's crazy to say, a bathroom break and AJ Styles in the same sentence. It sucks to say that. But this is exactly what it was. And let's just move on. Not to anything better, but the 24/7 championship of Shelton Benjamin defeating Reggie to win the championship. But then Dana Brooke won the 24/7 championship after she pinned Cedric, and then cut a promo after saying that, her saying after her win that she knows that she has a target on her back now. I believe you're on the same page as I am when it comes to the 24/7 championship. It's beyond its shelf life. I know there's some people out there listening and listeners of this show that somehow enjoy the 24/7 championship, maybe for the comedy attempt, and I don't even say comedy, I say attempt at comedy. I've got nothing to say about this championship.
Okay, here's what I got to say. First of all, it's the 24/7 championship, which means it's defended 24/7, but we had a sanctified match where it could not be messed with. Okay, now let's all digest that. My second note here is, I found out that Grease was on another channel, and I felt sad because I couldn't watch it because I was watching wrestling, because I'm a big fan of the movie Grease. And instead I was watching the 24/7 championship. Next thing is poor Cedric. Why keep burying him? And then all of a sudden we have Dana winning it, and then no guy will touch a woman all of a sudden as far as to roll her up, because they didn't know what to do. You can gingerly roll up a woman and win. How much has Dana changed?
From appearance? Oh my God. A lot. And I'm not trying to body shame anybody. I mean, Jim Cornette took her to task. Some of the comments he made about Dana Brooke, and she was not happy about it. And, look, everyone can do what they want with their own body. If she's got the money to do it, to alter herself, to make herself happier or more comfortable in her body, I don't care what she does. But from the outsider looking in, from somebody that's had no work done, and most people have not had work done, it doesn't look natural. I'll just put that very nicely as I can. It just doesn't look natural with Dana Brooke. And I'm not talking about her boobs, okay? I'm talking about just like everything else. There's just a lot of work going on. And again, it's her choice. But I'm also making my opinion and my observation, because I'm entitled to mine as well. It just doesn't look natural. That's really the best phrase I can use.
Cheekbones, facial reconstruction, and she lost her muscles.
Yeah.
I thought that's what made her stand out, was her muscles. She was stronger than almost any woman on that roster. I mean, she was a weightlifter.
Yeah.
She looks completely different. I don't know what the heck they're doing with her, or if she's doing it to herself, and maybe she thinks that she'll get a push out of it. And it's sad because she was talented. She wasn't a top dog, but maybe if you put her in, events when she was still a weightlifter with those top dogs, she would have got better and better, and you would have had main event matches. And instead, you punished her and you put her in the Titus brand, whatever that garbage was, and just other stupid things. And it's like, man, the girl has some talent. Why don't you nurture it and go forward? And now she's just altering herself, and she might be one of the next cuts. Well, how much money has she spent on this? Or are they paying for it? If they're paying for it, if that's what they want and you're cool with it, fine. But the flip side to me is, if she's paying for it and she gets released, what's the payoff for her? I mean, obviously, if you loved lifting weights and developing your body, and then you lost all that musculature to try to appease your boss, and then you lose your job, well, what'd you gain? Just pain and sorrow.
I hope that the motivation for her doing this to her body, I mean, again, it's hers. She can do what she wants, but I really do truly hope, as a human being to a human being, that her choices for all these alterations, and assuming she's using her own money, of course, that's an assumption. I don't know, as you said, maybe WWE is partially helping or whatever, that she's doing it because even beyond wrestling, she wants to do that. Like, I hope she's looking at this saying, hey, if this helps me in the perception of being able to elevate myself to the next level, or maybe Vince or production is looking for this or that in a female, if that's an addition, but I really want to do this for long term, then I understand. If she's doing this solely because she thinks it's going to help her career, I feel sorry for her, and I hope that's not the reason she's doing it. I really do, because we've learned over the last year, especially with the 80 to 90 releases of wrestlers, that nobody is safe. And it's surprising Dana Brooke has survived this long, honestly. And so I just really hope that she's looking at this saying, no, this is not just for wrestling. This is because I want to look like this. I'm not comfortable with this part of my body, that part of my body, so I'm going to alter it. I really just hope it is a long-term vision, not just what will Vince and Kevin Dunn like on camera.
Now it's Nick Khan.
Nick Khan. Yeah. He's the one, really. Yes.
He's the puppet master at this point. So it's so contradictory. It's like the 24/7 championship is defended in a real match where no one can interfere, and then the jobbers come out and
All right. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Let's move on to something hopefully a little bit better, but I'm not sure. Bobby Lashley faces the Mysterios in a handicap match, 2-on-1. And Bobby Lashley, thank goodness he beat them here, as he should have. And he locked Dominic in the Hurt Lock and dominated most of the match. I mean, they had some hope spots. There were some moments when you're like, oh, okay, there's a small chance that they could pull this off. But Bobby Lashley ends up soundly defeating the Mysterios, as he should. And hopefully this program is over. And anytime I see Dominic get thrown around like a rag doll is fun. I mean, I do not like Dominic from a character perspective. In ring, he's chip off the old block. He's got a long way to go, but in ring, he's at least serviceable. Character wise, I can't stand him. I can't stand the chemistry between him and his father. I think it's forced. It's not natural the way they speak to each other. Honestly, the way they use son and pops. Nobody calls most people don't call their son. They use their actual birth given name. Just little things like that have added up for me that I'm not a fan of their on-camera interactions at all. But seeing Bobby Lashley defeat them, for me, was a personal pleasure. What about you?
There's many layers of an onion I can peel back on this one, actually.
Okay.
I loved it. First of all, yes, Bobby Lashley is such an animal. And yes, he had to defeat both of them. Now, of course, the biggest rumor is that the two of them are going to split. This is writing its own story if they do it right. And they have to pull their heads out of their backsides to make it work. And Jim Cornette rewrote it. But first of all, did you notice that they spent no expense giving Bobby Lashley like an 80 sparkler pyro beginning?
Yeah, I did notice some of that. Yes.
Like, wow, that is the worst. The guy is he's a destroyer, and you gave him sparklers. Yep. Okay, so first of all, this is how it goes down. They have this match one more time, they lose. Once again, Dominic loses. But Dominic says he can do it. So he tells his father, Ray, just stay out of it. Stay out of it. Lay low. Let me do my own thing. I'm going to beat Bobby Lashley. And then when it comes down to the big match, Bobby Lashley has him locked in the Hurt Lock. And what does Ray do?
Nothing.
He throws in the towel.
Yep.
And that's what causes the split. Because he promises he will not submit. And so he keeps his promises, and he asks his father why. Why did he quit for him? And of course, Ray's going to be like, you're my son. That's why MVP cuts these golden promos. And that was a great beginning build, was the whole thing. Like, you know, you're talking about you're going to let your son down. You're going to, give up your son. That is so.
And talking about his wife, saying after I, beat him, give your wife my number. Yeah. Yes.
It works. They have to push this till first day. And they have to get whooped at least one more time. And then Ray said, Dominic says, I can do it on my own, Dad. I got to be my own man, blah, 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 blah. Ray throws in the towel. Dominic gets mad, but he's so injured he can't even shove him. He just maybe gives him a Three Stooges doink in the eye. Classic heel move. And then when his dad covers his eyes, kicks him in the nuts and pushes him over.
I love it.
And that is how you split them up. And then Ray wrestles for about a month or two, and they just keep interviewing him every day, and you just see more frustration, but you don't see Dominic. Meantime, Dominic's down at the Performance Center learning because he needs to. And then probably, I'd even push it to the Rumble. I'd just have Dominic doing promos, and I'd have him doing smoking a cigar with somewhat scantily clad women. Mimi, I apologize. I'm not a pervert. Women just being like, I'm not my father. I don't want to wear a mask. I'm not a family man. I'm out for myself. That's a build. And then a big blow off at the Rumble. And after all that extra training, Dominic beats Ray. And hopefully Ray retires, maybe wrestles another year. You could work it a little bit more, but that's the way this needs to go. But MVP and Lashley are very much part of this because Bobby Lashley, you can believe he can beat up 4 men. And MVP can cut the most believable promos. He's got to have some kind of creative freedom on his promos because the way he delivers them and what he says, it doesn't seem like it's scripted. He is so good on that mic. So this is the seeds. This is the gardening. This is what we're going to grow here. We want a tomato plant on this bad boy, okay? And but man, yeah. So I love this match for what it was worth. It wasn't terrible. I mean, you got to get this early in. It was almost like the '80s Killer Bees style, where you thought they were going to win the tag titles, but they always fell short. There was great tag team chemistry and everything else, but one guy collides into the other, and oh, geez. And here we go. And then all of a sudden they lose. Also, fun note, Killer Bees were the first team to ever defeat Demolition using their Killer Bee masks. I know this. I also talked to B. Brian Blair about it.
Well, no shortage of wrestling history here, wrestling knowledge being dropped on our listeners. I mean, I learned more about wrestling. In our hour and a half to 2 hour conversations than I do a lot of times in like a month or two of watching wrestling. So yeah, look, this is a program that you would think ended last night, but given that they just started a new pay-per-view cycle, who's Bobby Lashley going to face if it's not the Mysterios? Maybe at day one. I mean, it does lend itself to say, hey, I don't, it looks like they're going to be going into a program, but I don't know. I mean, if it ultimately leads to, and that's the ultimate goal for me, has always been splitting up Dominic and Ray, because I think that would be a hell of a program, as you laid it out, would be fun to watch, to see Dominic go off the rails and say, I'm not ashamed of who I am. I don't need to cover my face like you do, Dad. Don't you remember what you did to me, putting my life on my livelihood, my childhood on the line in a ladder match in 2005 against Eddie Guerrero. Don't you remember that, Dad? I didn't forget about all the emotional scarring that put me through. There's so much material that they could pull from, and it would make Dominic infinitely more interesting than he is now. He's like the wallpaper, like he's just there. No one really listens to him or watches him on mic. He's just so paper boring. And again, a contrast to that is MVP, who, as you said, no way he has a script. MVP is a guy that doesn't need one, and if he's reading from one, I would have a hard time believing it. I think he's a guy that just gets bullet points. He said they just tell him, "Hey, we're going this direction. Get us there. Like, just here's what we want to do. MVP, get us there." And I think that's how it comes across. And I'm loving every time MVP is on the microphone. He has just been truly the MVP of WWE, I think, in a lot of ways over the last 18 months, especially for Bobby Lashley's career. But anything else on this before we get to the final matchup here between Damian Priest and Sami Zayn?
Actually, I do have something to sidebar about Sami Zayn.
Okay, well, nice segue. Go ahead.
Okay, do you notice the way he's interacting with Vince McMahon once or twice a night is kind of a throwback to Mankind?
In what way?
Because Mankind was always trying to be Vince's friend, and Vince didn't like Mankind. Like, the initial interaction between them, he was just kind of like disgusted by Mankind. But yet, if Stone Cold was coming to hunt Vince or something like that, Mankind would be like, how you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm so happy to see you. I need you to do me a favor, But Sammy's the one who feeds Austin to him, Austin Theory, that is, and yet he doesn't get rewarded, and Mankind would never get rewarded.
Yeah,
I saw a little something there. I saw a little. They're really big. I mean, especially with Kevin Owens using the stunner and Bray Wyatt using the mandible and everything else. I mean, there's definitely a retread. I mean, Ray Charles could see it, and Stevie Wonder pointed it out. Come on. And if I offended anybody who's blind, I apologize. I'm just saying that anybody could see that coming a million miles away, that it was all retreaded. And the fact that all of a sudden Sami Zayn's like interjected in this, but he's kind of being rejected, reminds me of one Mr. Mick Foley before he got a push.
I never even thought about that. Like, I knew that something was going off in my brain, and I said, why is this familiar? But Sami Zayn acts like that with anybody he's trying to use, or anybody that's in a position of power. He will try to accommodate himself to that individual or individuals so that he gets what he wants. I mean, that's kind of what Sami does, but you're right. Specifically with Vince McMahon, it is a bit Mick Foley mankindish, where Vince will use that talent to his benefit to protect him, but never reward him back. Like, it's just very much a one-way street relationship. And now, again, I'm not saying that this is going to blossom into anything. Vince is probably going to be off TV next week. So for some reason, he thought it was important to come on here for an egg angle. I mean, again, if this leads to The Rock coming back long term, I guess I'll accept it. but for all intents and purposes, I think this silly egg angle went absolutely nowhere. But you're right. It could be for, or I'm saying not for The Rock. And if it is, that's fine. Sami Zayn right now is, to me, one of the most underutilized talents in terms of not being in some kind of championship position. If this is going to lead something long term with Vince and Sami, fine. I'm okay with it. But also, again, Vince on camera is not fun. It used to be. Vince on camera used to be fun, but now he's sometimes hard to even understand. His voice is so raspy, and he loses his train of thought kind of a little bit, that he's not the same guy he was when he was, it was Austin versus McMahon. It's not the same guy. He's still got flashes of that, but there's also a trend downward into just like Alzheimer's or dementia, and it's his age. I mean, again, it is what it is. But I don't want Vince on camera that much anymore because it's uncomfortable to watch. And for him to come back for this egg angle is just preposterous. So, all right.
Okay. First of all,
yep.
I'm going to say one thing about the egg angle. I think it was a barb to the wrestling industry, and I'm going to explain why. Because how much money do you think was made from all the Survivor Series over the years? Just if you could spitball it. Probably 100 million.
I was going to say you're in the 100 million plus range. Yeah.
Okay. And what was the feature of the first Survivor Series?
Wasn't the gobbledygooker
coming out of an egg?
Yeah, it was coming out of the egg. Yeah, it was one of the worst angles ever created. Yeah.
That's why I think they segued this. Of course, it was all the Rock stuff, and they're talking about. First of all, I don't think that the Rock versus Roman is going to do anything, but we'll get to that at some other point. All right, but yeah, I think it was a barb at his own pay-per-view, saying it was almost a joke, but I destroyed my competition with it. And honestly, it was the beginning of the downfall for NWA. WCW, because they had a hot pay-per-view on their hands, and he countered it with the Survivor Series, and the counter was, if you don't present my pay-per-view, then you can't carry my pay-per-view on your company anymore. And that's what crippled WCW, who had a superior card and a superior product on the same day. Live from Cleveland, I think it was 1991 or 92, because they played the results on TV, or they talked about the results on the news that day, and I lived in Cleveland.
Well, yeah, look, this is an angle that, it could be, like you said, it could be a bit of an homage or a joke on himself. But at this point, how many years ago was Survivor's the very first one? It was in the 80s, right? Like,
yeah, well, 89, no, 90s. It was like 1990. Hold on, I was in class with, it's weird I can do this with my brain. I was in 9th grade, so that would have been 90, 91.
Same year Undertaker debuted then.
Yeah, it was his debut, 1990.
Okay.
1990.
Okay, so, all right, so 90, yeah. I mean, I don't think, outside of Corey Graves, who he mentioned it at Survivor Series in a kind of a clever way. I mean, Corey Graves isn't my favorite on the mic, but he did mention in a kind of a passing way that anytime anybody brings an egg to Survivor Series, it never ends well. And then they just moved on. And there was some laughs, I think, from Cole, which, again, that was the only kind of in passing mention about the analogy between the gobbledygooker and the egg that was presented, how many years later? 31 years later. So,
well, there's actually more, because who was the gobbledygooker?
Who was it?
Hector Guerrero, Eddie's brother. And Eddie has died within the same week. That's why everybody's doing frog splashes.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Yeah. It's weird how my brain works.
How do you remember these things? Oh, gosh. All right. Oh, God. All right.
So Damian Priest. Okay.
All right. Yeah, Damian Priest, Sami Zayn, U.S. Championship.
Well, first of all, did you notice he phoned in the funk when he came out to the ring? He was just like, yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
It was just so like, I'm tired, or like, tomorrow's my off day kind of thing. So he didn't even pose much, whatever. He's showing 50-50 kind of tweener-ish. You don't know if he's a face or a heel, or if he'll just fight anybody. And then you have Apollo and Aziz come out. First of all, don't give Aziz the mic. Just let him stand there. Get rid of that staff. That is so stupid looking.
Giant Q-tip. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, King Kong's ears are clean at this point. But for him to deliver the promo, and then Apollo deliver the promo and then decline the offer, why come out then? This is really bad writing. And then I loved Sami Zayn coming out and accepting it. And that was more of the Mick Foley thing. Like, well, he doesn't want it, I'll take it. It reminded me of when Kane challenged Mick Foley to the cage match on Raw. And remember when Mick Foley sat there and started putting the thumbtacks in his face? And you remember what he said? He's like, well, I'm going to wrestle, but I'm going to get my ass kicked.
I haven't thought about that in like 20 years. Yeah. Yep.
That's what I do, man. And I was just like, Sami Zayn has some elements in there of Mick Foley. And people are not seeing that there might be something more organic with the stupid. That they might be getting away from the conspiracy thing. At least we don't have the people filming him anymore. I really wasn't a fan. It was, when people say entertaining, it's like, okay, we chuckle, but we all know when a wrestler goes comedy, unless you're Kurt Angle or Select Few, you don't come back. And what I see there is like, could we see a serious wrestler coming out of this? Could we see a guy who actually can say, okay, maybe Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville were holding him back for a purposeful reason? And I will say this, while Sammy's in-ring is good, man, he's not looking good physically. He is looking just way out of shape. And I don't know. Maybe he's just not hitting the gym. But he was still doing a great job. It was a great match. Not super great. But, the only thing that really killed the match for me, not killed it, but was when Priest started hulking up. There's that whole, he's got that look in his eyes, and then he did a little bit of the shake, and then they panned away, and I'm like, don't hulk up, please.
That is, and I saw that, and I thought the same thing. And I actually have been a fan of the Priest change, because I didn't like his baby face, I'm an Archer for no reason type of deal. This change, although we have had zero explanation how this has happened, what triggered it, or why it's continuing, I do at least enjoy the fact that he's more aggressive. There is that point where he snaps and he becomes kind of like, again, hulking up is a bad term because I don't want him actually to hulk up, but whatever his version of it is, I don't mind it. Just don't actually point to any hulking up. It's been dead a long time. And my point is, though, I like the Damian Priest alteration without the homage to Hulk Hogan's Hulk Up. Yes, I'm with you on that one. Yeah.
So that was my biggest drawback. But I mean, they went the way the match should have went for now. But it makes me wonder if Sammy is a future world champion. Like, if he'll get on Vince's good side. He was on 2 different segments with him, which means Vince picks this. And he was picked for a title shot. And I'm just wondering if, like, his differentness is something like it's just tickling his brain like Mick Foley. And he's saying, okay, I got the next Mick Foley. Because he has so many homages to everything else. And he was trying it with Mankind, with Bray Wyatt, with the Fiend character. So what if he's going a different avenue? Now, I could be reading too much into it, but people look at this. Listeners, if you see these similarities, please let us know. Let me know at Twitter, because I see it. I really, really see it. And it's just funny, like, for somebody who's supposed to be insignificant to the roster to have so much camera time. and to have so much similarities to a build for somebody who was never supposed to be a world champion, but worked so hard that he won the old man over. It's ideas.
Yeah. I mean, I've been advocating for Sami Zayn to become world champion for a while. And I truly believe that had Roman Reigns not stepped in and been an amazing heel, and for so long that he's been so good, that Sami Zayn probably on SmackDown would have been world champion at some point if Roman Reigns was not there as a heel. I think Sami Zayn could have filled that position very nicely. The conspiracy theorist has evolved into the elder statesman. He sometimes starts to talk about a little bit about the conspiracy theory and how his documentary is still coming out. But like, you're right, no more camera crews. He's moved away from that a little bit. And it's now the elder statesman of SmackDown, just giving people advice, trying to use people, all that kind of stuff. And maybe, again, I hope that something comes of this for Sami Zayn ultimately. I have concerns and doubts that it was just a one-off and that Vince and this egg thing was really for absolutely no reason at all. And that no one's going to really benefit from it other than being remembered as, oh yeah, remember Vince came back out of nowhere just to talk about a movie prop, that egg, remember that? And no one's going to remember it or care. But I hope Sami Zayn is able to use this as a springboard to wherever they want to take him. So is there anything else? I know, again, that kind of covers Raw, but you can respond to that or anything else that you may have on your list of things before we close things out.
Well, I just feel for everybody who got released, and I wonder who you think might be on the chopping block for the next round.
I mean, I think Dana Brooke, as we alluded to, is concerning on that list. She, to me, it's amazing she has not been. I'm sure she was considered as one of the potentials. I mean, she is she has been to me on the chopping block metaphorically for quite some time, and so I think she, in terms of the women's division, is one of concern. As I look at the current roster now, I mean, I could see Nikki actually being in terms of, again, women's division would be of concern. On the men's side, I mean, you have Jinder Mahal, Shanky. I mean, they probably won't be missed if they're gone. What about you?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say Akira Tozawa. I mean, basically anybody in the 24/7 group and that whole stupid football angle, which we didn't get to tonight, but I'm glad we didn't do that. I would say Mustafa Ali. He's not 300 pounds. Mansoor, they'll hold on to because they use him. They're just going to abuse him and use him for overseas. But Mustafa Ali, I had somebody else on my mind. Oh, Francis. He stole Pee Wee's bike. That's Otis, everybody.
Yes, that's Otis. I could see that, sadly.
And probably Chad Gable.
Yeah.
I think that say that, but I mean, and there's so much talent missed there. Otis, I think, could have had talent. There's ways I would have booked him to do a lot more, but anyway, go ahead.
No, and the thing, I mean, I have not heard anything about another round yet, but it doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. There doesn't seem to be a time frame that's consistent, like they do it every 4 weeks. It's here or there, then they do it in like big bunches, and then they don't do anything for like 3 months, and then all of a sudden there's a big release again. There's no easy to predict timetable for when these will happen, but this is, again, we're not saying, guys, that this is on the table. We're saying if there is another round, that these are the potentials in our mind of who could be on the chopping block. No doubt, Akira Tozawa, Chad Gable, Otis. I don't want to say R-Truth because R-Truth is a beloved character.
Here's a good question. How about one that would shock you? Like, could happen, like theoretically could, like Randy Orton's not going to happen. Okay, but like one like a Braun Strowman or Bray Wyatt, like what kind of thing?
One that, okay, that's a little more difficult, but let me think about it. I think in my mind, one that would be shocking, but realistic, and people are going to go a little bit ballistic on this one. I think AJ Styles.
That's what I was going to say.
Sorry. Sorry. And the reason, and again, I my bad. I mean, we just picked the same guy out of nowhere, but AJ Styles, because they've gone so long now without giving him a singles run that I don't believe there's a chance that they won't ever do it. And they're just waiting for his contract to expire, or maybe they'll get rid of him early. So insanely, I could see him getting released.
See, he said that when he signed his contract with WWE a few years ago, that it was his last contract he would ever sign. So, get what you want out of training almost, training him to be a professional, everything else, and then kick you in the ass and have a good day. And we don't have to pay you for the last 6 months. And they signed him to some pretty fat contracts. Now, the only other one I would say close to that might be Matt Riddle. Because they just don't really know what to do with him.
That would be insane. But
it was insane with Keith Lee. It was insane Cross.
Bray Wyatt.
So, yeah, I mean, so there, those are the just for Matt Riddle, I would say, because they don't know how to book him, unless they really do have a plan. And like, it's funny that you and I could spitball a plan in like 30 seconds, and the writers don't know what to do. But I could just see them, like Nick Khan, be like, he's not one of ours, so why don't we just get rid of him? And we're going to make this Von Wagner, and we're going to make Paul Johnson and Ralph Schlemowitz the best wrestlers ever, and they're green, but we're going to put them on NXT 2.0 and have them wrestle in pink singlets, and I don't know, man. So yeah, it's just something that my nephew wanted me to ask you about and think about, because John Morrison really surprised me. And the fact is that they're the ones who are responsible for that. They screwed that up so bad, just so bad. You had a guy who's so singularly talented, and you didn't know what to do with him except pair him into the same thing that you had released him with 10 years prior. Like,
and they did nothing else other than that with him. They had the heel turn at the end, but that doesn't count. They didn't follow. There was nothing to that. They didn't do anything other than put him right back where he was. There was nothing else he did.
The reason he left is the reason they brought him back. Do you think he's going to be Johnny Elite or back to Johnny Impact?
I mean, AEW is the place that is the cool new place to be. It's the they've got much deeper pockets than any other wrestling promotion other than WWE. I mean, I'd like to see him in AEW. I actually think the fans there would genuinely be happy to see him, because they know they'd get a version of him that they've wanted to see in WWE, other than just the sophomore garbage that him and The Miz put on for years. So I think the fans actually would be excited for him in AEW. Do I think he's going to go back to Impact? I mean, it's possible. It's possible, but I think if you're smart, and I think John Morrison is, that you want to go where the money is, you want to go where the hot product is, you would want to go to Impact or AEW. I mean, I don't see any other way that he'd want, unless money's not an issue, and he has, I don't know. I think AEW is ultimately where he lands, but I wouldn't be surprised if he even goes to back to New Japan or something like that. I mean, what do you think?
Well, he always changes his name for every place he goes. So if he goes to New Japan, he'd be like Johnny Japan or Johnny Nippon.
Yeah.
Or, you got to think about these things. But I think he'll become Johnny Elite, and then he'll showcase his skills like he has. And it's just so sad because they made him act like a child. I almost feel like they got all these people to outright bury him. So, Vince had this plan in the territorial days before he outright took over television. A lot of people who don't listen or who don't know wrestling as far back as I do, or Memphis Mark or something like that, didn't know the territories when you had options of AWA, NWA, WWF, blah, 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 blah. When Vince got somebody, he would rebrand them as who they were, or if he brought them in who they were, on their way out, he would outright bury them bad. So he was hoping that they wouldn't have a job someplace else. And then when he brought them back is when he would rebrand them. Henceforth, Mike Rotundo was Mike Rotundo, the U.S. Express with Barry Windham. They leave. Mike Rotundo comes back. Now he's IRS. It's like, no, he was one of your World Tag Team Champions. And then Barry Windham comes back 10 years later, or more than that. And now he's the stalker. And then you admit he's Barry Windham because the Attitude Era comes, and you have to admit there's some reality to it. So I see a little bit of that. Okay, AEW started, you had all these talented people. They're going to show you up. So why don't we get them? Why don't we bury them? And then we release them. He's doing his backwards politics.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's quite a game we're playing here. I mean, like, it's honestly it's something you could create an entire show out of, is who goes where, who do you think is next, who would be a shocking release but a realistic one, who are the people that are untouchable. It's really kind of a fun concept that maybe, you know, at some point in the near future we could all get together and do that, because it's something that's fascinating, and I'd like to put more thought into it about these things, because I think it's something that unfortunately is going to happen again. Every time you think WWE's done cutting people, they do it again and again and again and label it budget cuts, which I think is a bunch of nonsense. So this is definitely a deeper, separate podcast for sure.
Definitely. You know, and it's like one thing I'll leave with the listeners with is like the idea I gave you, which is Bray Wyatt's best reemergence in wrestling would be New Japan, and evolve the Fiend character into a Fiend Kabuki character, and then work also with AEW through the open door policy, and maybe with Impact. But with that character, he'd blow the doors off everything and become the biggest thing. He'd be the biggest thing since the Bullet Club. Because you put an Asian spin on the Fiend and let him have more creative control. We're talking dollars, hand over fist. But anyway, my Twitter is 144captain. So, I don't know what else to say. It's been a good night.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's always great talking with you. Our therapy session has concluded with wrestling.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, the hourly rate is a bit substantive, so I accept cash, check, money order. It's always a fun time talking wrestling. Everybody that listens enjoys when you're on the show. So definitely we'll have to do this again sooner than later. And it was great talking with you tonight.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it. Always humbled. And everybody out there, I miss you. And if you're new to listening to the show, find me. 144captain at Twitter. So
absolutely.
All right.
All right. Thanks so much, brother. And we'll be talking soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.